Welcome back to Pop Dissected. With 9 number 1 singles, 14 top 10 hits, and 18 to crack the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100, Katy Perry has proven she's a certified chart legend. Though in recent years her success on these charts has dwindled, her singles are undoubtedly cemented in pop music and pop culture. Though having such an expansive catalog packed tight with ultimate bangers, not every song of hers has gotten equal recognition, deservingly or not. We'll be looking at all her albums: One of the Boys, Teenage Dream, PRISM, Witness, and Smile. So today, let's take a look at the Katy Perry songs that didn't climb the ranks of their peers and find out why. Be sure to also comment what your favorite underrated Katy Perry song is. To clarify, we'll be looking specifically at the Hot 100, but at the end, we'll see how all these songs mentioned did internationally. Thinking of You, the third single off her debut album One of the Boys, saw a peak position of 29 on the Hot 100. The primary reason for this were both the tracks I Kissed a Girl and Hot and Cold, the singles that preceded it. I Kissed a Girl sustained a number 1 position for 7 weeks, from early July 2008 to nearly the end of August. At that time, Hot and Cold had re-entered the chart at 88, before receiving the single treatment in September. Reaching its peak of number 3 at the end of November, it was actually a much bigger radio hit than I Kissed a Girl, earning 4 more weeks in the top 10 than it, accumulating to 18 weeks in total. When Thinking of You released in January of 2009, Hot and Cold still stood strong at number 6. Upon Thinking of You's entrance on the Hot 100 at 79, Hot and Cold had only fallen to 8. After reaching its peak of 29, it had the potential to surpass Hot and Cold's position of 19. However, it would only stay at this position for another week, before a slow fall off the chart in May. Waking Up in Vegas would debut a few weeks later, ultimately hitting number 9 during its 13th week. Through and through, Thinking of You had a moderate and stable success. However, the 2 singles before it set the idea of what the Katy Perry song should be. Though appropriately released in the winter, Hot and Cold was still going strong. She was able to keep her chart momentum with that song because I Kissed a Girl had begun to run its course. Thinking of You is a fan favorite and one of Katy's most personal songs, so it's fitting it was a single to show her songwriting capability and offer variety to audiences. The top of the charts had tracks like You Belong With Me, I Got a Feelin', Boom Boom Pow, Love Game, and so on. For an acoustically driven pop rock track, Thinking of You did very well against all these other songs. Waking Up in Vegas likely could have peaked higher if it was after Hot and Cold. However, regardless, there was some fierce chart competition back in the day. While I think the rollout is pretty solid, another rock-oriented single such as Fingerprints or If You Can Afford Me would have been the perfect summer closer to follow Waking Up in Vegas. The Teenage Dream era offers nothing short of success. Every track could have been a single. Given all the number 1s, I'll touch on why The One That Got Away only reached number 3 and Wide Awake was stalled at number 2. The One That Got Away had a slow climb to its peak position, aided with remixes and an acoustic version. Given how pop the Teenage Dream singles were, I think the remixes and up-tempo nature of the song allowed it to do better than a track like Thinking of You. Also, Katy performing the song acoustically and never how it sounds in its studio version also aided in its wider appeal, offering the true heartbreak behind such a fun-sounding track. The song was in the top 3 with LMFAO's Sexy and I Know It and Rihanna's We Found Love. All 3 very different songs. Ultimately, despite its capability to reach number 1, the songs ahead of it were just pulling in a bigger audience, and given what these songs are and who they were by, it makes perfect sense. This is the case with Wide Awake also. Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen prevented Wide Awake from flying to number 1. Whistle by Flo Rida, Lights by Ellie Goulding, and We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together by Taylor Swift all raced up the charts following Wide Awake's peak. So though it easily could have hit number 1, its time had run out. The singles off Teenage Dream gave each other room to breathe, offered variety, and in some universe, all 8 of those total singles would have reached number 1. None of these singles overshadowed each other, but that can't be said about PRISM, After Roar hit its peak of number 2 in August of 2013, PRISM's second single, Unconditionally, would reach its peak of 14 in December that year. At this time, Roar would be right above it at number 12. Imagine Dragons, Miley Cyrus, Lorde, and Eminem all had successful songs at this time, arguably being what pushed out Roar and prevented Unconditionally from going any higher. Also, at the time Unconditionally hit its peak, Dark Horse was already racing up to 36, jumping to 22 the next week after being an official single. To be honest, though it's one of her biggest hits, the song overtook the PRISM era from the very beginning. Dark Horse was quite literally a dark horse. The track would jump from 22 to 14 to 11 and then to 6. This song in part likely boosted Roar back up into the top 10 at number 8. These songs were massive. Time has proven that. Unconditionally had fallen down to 29 by now, and by February 8th of 2014, Dark Horse was at number 1, Roar at 18, and Unconditionally was clinging on at 49. By April 16th, Birthday was released as the next single. I speculate this saw a quick release and video since Katy was about to go on tour, and would not be able to promote it the same way she did with preceding tracks, which contributed to its overall lower, albeit good, performance. However, Dark Horse was at number 3 and Birthday entered the charts at 91. Roar, oddly enough, fell off the chart this week. This is likely due to the attention being split between Dark Horse and Birthday, so the middleman was eliminated. In June of 2014, Birthday reached its peak of 17, Dark Horse still galloping around at number 6. Birthday would stay at 17 for about 2 weeks. The song rose and fell, only being able to rise back up to 19, and then it slowly descended off the Hot 100. I think Dark Horse was really just the Katy Perry song to hear. The success of that song is insane, hanging out on the Hot 100 for 57 weeks, 22 of those in the top 10. Birthday wasn't as heavily promoted and had a video that wasn't really what fans or audiences expected or may have really enjoyed. Given the competition of Dark Horse and minimal promotion, Birthday did well. Then This Is How We Do came out and we probably should have started the sirens. In the middle of August of 2014, the track debuted at 88. Only now would Dark Horse begin its descent, placing at 23, and Birthday was ready to make its exit, sitting at 97. By mid-September, This Is How We Do peaked at 24, with hits like All About That Bass, Shake It Off, and Anaconda all breaking the internet. Katy didn't really stand a chance, especially given she was a year into this era already. I think This Is How We Do wasn't the sound people really enjoyed from Katy. The comments over cultural appropriation in the video also probably hurt the song. A lot of artists were also coming in with brand new strong eras. Dark Horse was still a frontrunner, and This Is How We Do is really Katy's first song that, while fun, showed a bit of a lackluster quality, especially with its spoken-sung lyricism. The standalone rise peaked at 11 in August of 2016, and if it was attached to an album and promoted more, it could have easily been a top 10 hit. I think that's obvious. This would have been a solid start to a new era. It rose from 43 all the way to 22 after the video release alone. This is really when we get to see the potential that got away. In February of 2017, Chained to the Rhythm was released, debuting and peaking at number 4. While this isn't bad and singles could always go higher, they could also go lower. Katy from this point on would primarily peak with the debut position, and the single would only fall from there. I've already gone extensively in depth about the Witness era, and these videos can be checked out in the description. A horde of factors contributed to the instability throughout this era, too many to be addressed here. But to speak strictly about the charts, I Don't Want to Live Forever, Taylor Swift's most streamed Spotify track, and Shape of You, the song that would never die and is literally one of the best-selling songs ever, were atop the chart at that time. Chained to the Rhythm dropped to 8, and then 12, hovering between 13 and 19 for the next 5 weeks, before dropping to 27 on its 9th week. By its 12th week, it stood at 74, with Bon Appetit 2 spots below it. Bon Appetit fell off the charts just to pop back up 3 weeks later at its peak of 59. For the release week of Witness in June of 2017, Change of the Rhythm sat at 88, Bon Appetit at 67, and Swish Swish would debut and peak at 46. At week 6, Swish Swish would sit at 90, being the final Witness single to chart before departing the Hot 100. I think broader issues aside of these songs not connecting to audiences in the way Katy intended, their minimal interest from the beginning ended up being split 3 ways, thus no song was going to hold a steady position. Change of the Rhythm was on life support. The final 2 singles were released within a month of each other and fought amongst streams and sales. I think additionally, merely looking at the top 10 of the Hot 100 around this time and scanning the entire chart, the music Katy was making was not in. It simply was not what people were mass buying or really listening to. So now we close with Smile. In May of 2019, the Con Calma remix was hovering in the high 20s when Never Really Over debuted and peaked at 15. This song was loved by fans and critics alike. However, this apparent comeback was the potential that was squashed. No live performances, no promotion, not being attached to an album at the time, it fought on the charts, jumping from high 30s to low 20s, but by Small Talk's 81 debut, Never Really Over stood at 50, then 65, 94, and out. Daisies would debut and peak at 40 in May of 2020, before falling to 79, going back up to 74, 69, 76, before setting back at 79 for 2 weeks. Never Really Over was really the perfect opportunity. However, the interest it brought was just forgotten, lost, and disregarded. This was the music people wanted. But then we got Small Talk next, which wasn't the music people wanted. We got Harley's in Hawaii, which would eventually become a bit of a cult classic. And though Daisies was well received and got ample live performances, the hype died down. And now Katy is fighting to even enter the Hot 100 with her recent track, When I'm Gone, which is a banger, might I add. The One of the Boys single, Thinking of You, primarily was fighting against Hot and Cold, and didn't really stack up against the popular sound at the time. The Teenage Dream singles only really dealt with big songs blocking them. The PRISM singles were largely overshadowed by Dark Horse, and promotion became wonky and ended on a less than desirable note. Rise forewent an album attached to it, Witness singles were not the sound that was in and had a confusing message, and Smile showed little to zero investment in promotion. Only did it begin to spike up until the interest wasn't there for the masses. She did, however, pull out all the stops while heavily pregnant, so good on her. Katy Perry's career arc is a very fascinating one, and one that contains so many interesting turns, and it's interesting how one album really changed the trajectory of her chart impact. However, we know at this point, she is really just impassioned about creating for her Katy Cats and having fun. We may never see the heydays of the early 2010s, and while charts are not everything, it's interesting to see the evolution of these numbers for a certain artist. Internationally, we can see how some of these songs held similar positions outside of the United States. We can also see how others fared very well outside the US and could tap into different demographics. So there you have it. That's why these Katy Perry songs underperformed. If you enjoyed this series, let me know what artists you would like to see next. I'd initially projected this to be a much shorter of a video, but I found there was a bit more to discuss than I had thought. For the most part, I like to keep these more easily digestible, so give me any tips on how you think I could cut down on the runtime. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe so you can get more future content on all your favorite pop stars. If you'd like to help decide future video topics, get special comment and name badges, and get a shout out, then I'd love to have you as a channel member. Thank you for watching.